Half-a-day students, I am Governor Lou Leon Guerrero. You all have been through a year of big changes. We've had to adapt and make big changes to keep our families and our island safe. But with change comes opportunity and a chance to try new things like PBS University. While Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio and I will continue to do our part to keep our island safe, you students have a part to play as well. Your part is to keep learning and to keep up with your lessons. That's why I am happy to see you here ready to learn with PBS University. PBS University is a way to bring a continuous educational curriculum to you while you stay safe at home during this time. To help you keep up with your studies, we asked our friends at PBS Guam and the Guam Department of Education to put together this episode. Thank you for doing your part and have a great lesson.
Humanities Guåhan, an independent nonprofit organization affiliated with the National Endowment for the Humanities, is dedicated to promoting public humanities programming for the people of Guam and providing foundational support and educational resources for our island community. For more information about Humanities Guåhan, visit www.humanitiesguahan.org. The following webinar series is part of a project presented by Humanities Guåhan entitled Unincorporated, Voting, Voices, and Visions Para Guåhan. This project explores CHamoru stories, experiences, and perspectives on civic engagement in relation to voting rights, democracy, political status, and CHamoru self-determination. Unincorporated consisted of the 5-part webinar series that took place from January through May 2021 and covered topics on the origins of CHamoru self-determination, the work of the Commission on Decolonization, the relationship between art and decolonization, and the role of the U.S. legal system as it relates to Guam's political status. The project culminated with the launch of an online and printed magazine distributed throughout the community, which consists of essays, creative reflections, and artwork exploring issues around Guåhan's political status and decolonization through the perspectives and historical and political experiences of the CHamoru people of Guåhan.
And self-determination must be, as uniquely defined, must be supported by the administering power, which in this case is the United States. And administering power is UN speak for colonial powers. All right, next slide. I believe it's the last one, if I'm not mistaken. Ti Måmakpo, yes. Ti Måmakpo. It's not over until we say it's over. So Davis case is in the Ninth Circuit. This is not a prelude to revolution. I think it's a common sense solution to history. I don't think of it as the reversal of history. I think of it as the fulfillment of history. And you can't separate Tautotano. You can't say we're going to deal with this addresses the question about treating them like Indians, to separate them from their land. You can't do that. Guåhan and Tautotano to me are the same thing. And I think it's time for everybody in Guam's leadership to affirm its support in the same way that it did for self-determination in the 1980s and a decolonization process in the 1990s. And next slide. All right, then I'll give it back to Selena.
Thank you. Thank you, Sidus Maasi. Dungluna Sidus Maasi. We do have several questions, and I think a couple of questions are related to the lack of movement. The question is, to what degree can we attribute the lack of movement on the part of the U.S. government on resolving our self-determination efforts to the military's unfettered use and actions in the territory? And another question came in that was sort of similar, that asks, would you not agree that it was more of the Navy that played a greater role in keeping Guam and the Marianas only for strategic military means? So in these sorts of questions, you know, we're addressing the discussion of military influence or military power being hindrance to our exercising this right. So, what are your
Well,
thoughts?
I obviously it plays a great deal of great role in it. And you know, if there were no military strategic issues, there would be no Commonwealth of the Northern Marianas, because they wanted to make sure that they had a position from which to train, and that's what they're asserting now. Um, yeah, of course, the military is not a friend in this regard. It's not going to be friendly, because you're asserting, you're creating a risky situation for them. So they're going to be risk averse. On the other hand, I believe that if political leaders were a little bit more forward thinking in Guam's political leaders, they could use the fact of the strategic importance in order not just to get more funds, but to get a real conversation going on self-determination. And if they could do that, then of course, then the military role would become, instead of adversarial, could be a handmaiden to it. That sounds a little bit more hopeful than maybe it deserves, but you know, on the other hand, you know, you look at a place like American Samoa, which has almost no military strategic value, you know, except in some kind of wild contingency imagination. I don't know, but it doesn't change the dynamic much there either. At the end of the day, most of this is really going to depend on us, rather than looking for some far-sighted Secretary of Defense to come up. The Secretary of Defense and the admirals and the generals, they got lots of things on their minds. They don't want their minds and their desks cluttered with issues pertaining to Chamorro self-determination. They're hoping that somebody else can solve that problem so they can get on with their business. And so that's how they see it. So it's, and to what extent does their influence, it plays a big role in Congress, but in a new administration, where there are commitments to dealing with issues of historical injustice, where you're dealing with the first Native American Secretary of Interior, there's an opportunity to raise these issues, I believe, in a way that have not been raised before. And so that's the basis for, I think, some optimism. But they're not going to be raised by them just because they're interested in it. They have to be raised by us. They have to be raised by our own federal representative. And they have to be raised by the Guam legislature. They have to be raised by the governor. And we have to get them to raise them. And if they don't raise them, then there's no reason for anybody over in Washington, D.C. to pay attention.
This project, this what we call a civic project, some of the questions that have come through are, why this kind of project, these discussions, these conversations, why is it important for everyone to be concerned with? CHamoru's, non-CHamoru's, political leaders, you know, the common person. Why is this important for everyone to be concerned with?
Well, first of all, it's not going away. So this issue is not going away. It's an issue that, you know, when you think of justice issues and you think of denials and you think of fulfillment, these are the issues that come to, that are motivating. I think a lot of young people today, there's more interest in this today than there was when I was younger. I think there's a lot more interest, and across the board, not just young Chamorro activists, but just kind of people who are intellectually aware, are coming to terms with it, trying to figure it out. You know, there's a tape there that was produced by a young Filipino American from Guam, you know, that helped produce that tape on Chamorro self-determination. There's all of this energy that's out there now. I don't believe that it's It should pit one group against another, and I don't think it's inherently divisive. But of course, politicians may want to use it that way. But it's not denying anybody anything that wasn't promised to them. I always find it curious that if I had lived in Wisconsin all my life, I would never get the opportunity to vote in an election of what Wisconsin should be. It's a state, that's it. There's no more conversation. But when I moved to Guam, all of a sudden, I should be given an opportunity to decide whether Guam should be an independent nation, a state, or free association. Why? Why should I have that right? I didn't have that right as an American living in the 50 states, but I get it when I come here. Why? Why should I have that right? And I don't think you should, because this is a qualitatively different set of circumstances. It's not meant to deny you the right to vote for somebody for governor or the legislature or to participate in the ordinary political discourse. But this is of monumental significance, and historically, I think it needs to be addressed. And so I think the more people think about it, the Dave Davises of the world are fewer in number than the others. But of course, I always take time to point out that Dave Davis really aroused a lot of people in a way that they sort of forgot about it. So in a way, Mr. Davis gave us an opportunity to re-engage.
Speaking of voting and Dave Davis, why do you feel the electoral process should matter to me or to the other voters on Guam?
Well, because Guam is not fulfilled. See, it's just not. It's not. What is Guam? When I was in high school, Tony Palomo was editor of Pacific Profile, and he wrote an editorial in there, and he said, "It's a time to ask, what is Guam?" That was the first time I thought about it. What is it? What is it for? What is its purpose? And who are we? Who do we think we are? And until we answer those questions, we're going to always live in kind of a temporary situation. So it should matter for all. It's not, it's of course if it remains unattended, Look at the issues over the firing range. Look at the issues that we're going to have protests on next week. Those are real concrete issues. How did those issues get resolved if we really had self-government? I'm not sure that we would come to maybe a different decision. I'm hoping that we would come to a different decision, but at least you would have had a part in that decision. As it feels now, it feels like, a decision is just made by somebody else and you're just stuck with it. And those issues are always kind of part of the picture. Even legislation that's they're arguing now. They're arguing about legislation, and they will. They'll argue over relief legislation for COVID-19, because whatever legislation comes through, there's no real management or no real influence on the part of Guam and how that is going to work here. And so then we get all of these kind of disjunctures. And instead of trying to figure out how do we navigate through the federal government, we start fighting amongst each other, amongst ourselves, blaming each other for being incompetent or corrupt, or, it's very dispiriting.
Thank you so much. We're already coming to the end of our time, but there is one other question that I think is important, because you have been personally involved with with the movement and for Indigenous rights, CHamoru language preservation, and all of the work that you've done, and even a lot of the colleagues' names you've mentioned, Hope Cristobal. all the other names of these people who've done this work before my time. The question that has come in is, what are some of the differences you can distinguish between what propelled initial CHamoru self-determination movements and what propels the movement today?
Well, I think there's more involvement today, and it's broader, has a broader framework. Could be deceptive because of social media, but it seems like more people are involved. I think at the time that we were involved in this, it seems so counter to the direction that Guam was going, that just going to the UN. You know, I didn't have a lot of money, so I had to ask people for money. Will you contribute so I can go to the UN? A lot of people gave me money. You know, give me $100 or $50, something. But they said, don't ever tell anybody I gave you money. So that's the main difference. I still have a list of those people, by the way. I'm going to out them one day. But they said, don't ever tell anybody that I gave you money to go to the UN. Because it felt very different. Today, it seems sort of natural, but it's still very much unfulfilling. I have a lot of confidence in younger, stronger, vibrant voices. There are so many opportunities for people to learn so many things today than there were in those days. If we didn't, if there was only a handful of us, if we didn't think it up, it wasn't thought about. And that was a sort of a lonely activity, you know, but we're a lot better off today. And so I thank all of you for making that possible.
Thank you so much. I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up now. If I'm not mistaken, I think we've got a song, but Dr. Underwood, it's been a pleasure. It's rather, sometimes it does feel a little disheartening to talk about these issues. And, but we do have a way forward. And Ti Måmakpo Ti Månahajan Astaki Makpojan Monajan Todu. And we are, I'm hopeful. I'm personally hopeful and energized, and got to get our peers moving so that our children won't have these discussions about continuing the movement 20 years, 40 years from now. For as much as all the work that has been done that's come before my time, I just hope that we finally see an end, a victorious outcome, and something that we can look forward to in our future and my children's lifetime. So, danklu nasidos maasi para po.
These webinars can be accessed on Humanities Guåhan's Facebook page. To view the online magazine associated with Unincorporated Voting, Voices, and Visions Para Guåhan, visit humanitiesguåhan.org/unincorporated.
Hafa students, I'm Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio. For more than a year now, you all have continued to wash your hands and watch your distance from others, and you've done a really great job wearing your masks. We know your parents and guardians have helped you to make these changes to keep yourself and your community safe. As Governor Leon Guerrero said, we are happy you are here. We want you to continue to learn and sharpen your skills with the help of PBS University. This program is the result of a collaborative effort. We couldn't do it alone. I'd like to thank the teachers and support staff of the Guam Department of Education and PBS Guam for their work and their commitment to our students. I'd also like to thank you students for participating at home. To your parents, I'd like to thank you for taking an active role in your child's education. We are all eager to return to a time when all of us can share and study together in person. Until then, we hope you learned something new from this PBS University instruction.